How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the show. Today we've got Courtney Moeller. Holy cow, has she been on a ripper? Iron Horse Energy Funds is the name of her company. She just got done with an insane $31 million raise in a single quarter. We're going to talk about that in just a second. And it wasn't for real estate. Before we get into all that, Courtney, welcome to the program.
Yes, well, it's an honor to be here. As always, you're a total rock star, so thanks for having me.
It's super mutual. I have talked to so many people about what you've got going on because honestly, you put in quite a lot of work and it just really compounded on itself in such a great way. And I'm just so excited to see where you are. Given the market cycle of oil in particular, like you've been able to do it when the market itself, valuations were down, but thankfully, this is very rare. Thankfully, the tide started to shift in your favor from a capital market standpoint when valuations were still down. That's a very rare combination, but if you get it right, my goodness, can it just the back end, year three, four, five? I mean, it's just going to be incredible, and I'm just really happy for you. So I want to start off by saying that part of that shift you played a role in because your messaging and marketing has been consistent. And now you're going to reap some amazing benefits if these deals do what I think they might do based on what's going on with oil. Before we get into any of that, though, how did you get into this oil and gas element? That's not what most people are into. Talk about your background and how you ended up focusing on this.
Yeah, no, and this is such a great question because everybody asks, and it is very unique. But my entire family's been involved in oil and gas my whole life. My dad was a petroleum engineer, and we've actually drilled oil in Abu Dhabi, Pakistan, and he drilled in Jakarta for 20 years before he retired. But I grew up in the Permian Basin, which is the number one basin in the United States, the highest producing basin at almost 7 million barrels per day. And so it's all we've ever done. It's all my family's ever done. And I inherited my dad's company back in 2011 when he passed away. And, we've continued drilling throughout the Permian. And when I got into alternatives, I thought I was going to raise money and put together deals for real estate and figured out I don't know anything about cap rates or managing any of this stuff. But I thought, I do know oil and gas and this is what I'm good at. And I'm just going to apply those same principles to the oil and gas space. And your group and then your network and, coming in and joining your mastermind has just, it's really helped open up my eyes and vision to a lot of things and really being, creative in how I put deals together and being able to tap into that community and I think there's always great ways to structure things and do things, but the relationships that I've built and the knowledge that I've gathered through that time frame has been really instrumental in landing me where we are now and what we've done.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. You've also done all the work yourself. And just, I remember from the first time we met, you were very busy and very like excited, but at the same time, I didn't know if you were going to be able to put the rubber to the road, and you totally have. And it's been just awesome to watch. So let's talk about this last raise. What was your expectations going in? Talk a bit about the market of oil and how this all kind of came together. Was it was it you sent out a deal, raised it quickly? Did you have to scramble around? Like, tell me a little bit more about the entire process because it's obviously a huge figure.
Yeah, no, and this is such a great question. And part of the reason that we moved to the fund model instead of the one-off deals is because I really felt like having, the more operators, the more wells, the more diversification that we can provide in one entity, the better it is for investors. And a lot of the reasons, gosh, we've been in a bear market for more than 2 years. 2025 was tough. We saw prices down, at $50, and that's really tough. So you never know what the raise is going to be like, but we're very strict in our underwriting and we're able to still continue payments because of that underwriting. And we're still able to do distributions in those types of environments because of what we're acquiring and who we're participating with. And that matters. It just like real estate, location and operator matter. It's the same. So we've got very strict requirements. So when we were launching the fund, I also had multiple people that were like, I really want to bring your deals to my investors. How can we do this? And I thought, this fund is such a great time to introduce this because now, other capital raisers can come in as a feeder fund and, we can provide that great diversification. And so it was like, well, let's go big and do, $100 million fund. And I thought that's a crazy number. And we had 100 million, more than $100 million in soft commits from, capital raisers going into that. And
Hmm.
what I realized there were some people, gosh, we ended up partnering with about 10 different people and that handful of funds. And I think 30% of them either met or exceeded. They exceeded. It was their biggest raise they had ever had, which was awesome. We had a couple of people that did fall, a little bit short. But whenever you bring a new asset class to your real estate group or whatever you specialize in, there's usually some pushback on that because you're bringing something new to investors that are typically, they're used to seeing real estate or something else. So you never know how that's going to work out. So we didn't hit the 100 million. We stopped at the 31.4. We were only open for 1 quarter and actually even probably a little bit less than that. But we did have a couple of people that, we ended up turning away that we decided, their values didn't align with our values. And I just, for me, I feel like, this is people's hard-earned money and we are stewards of that capital. And I want to make sure that I'm partnering and bringing in people that have that same level of respect for managing other people's money. And so, part of the reason we didn't hit that 100 million was we just weren't, I think if were open longer, we could have done that. And then I finally just kind of decided these are the handful of people we're going to work with this time and we're going to close it and cap it. And we didn't advertise it and we landed at 31.4. And I was a little bit disappointed at first, like, man, this was my goal and this is where we landed. And then I thought, this is our very first fund like this. I'm really proud of what we did and what we put together. And, we ended up with, gosh, about 10 different operators in 3 to 4 basins with 40 different wells for our people. And I'm pretty pumped about that. And we're drilling with Continental Resources and Validus and, some really big players.
Love to hear it. Just for context, do you have an idea of like the last 5 years of what you raised in a year? I know you showed me the number a long time ago, but it's
Yes.
just because you say you're disappointed with 31 million. People need to know what put that in context.
Yes, so my very first year that I raised was in 2021 and it was 1.4 million. I do believe, and I'm trying to think. I didn't have that pulled up right now. I think the
Just
very
ballpark
next
it.
year, I think we're sitting now at right around 75 million at this point in time. I got an award at your RaiseMasters last year for hitting that 25 million mark and oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I had my do not disturb on, but it's my kid.
No
Um,
problem.
so we had surpassed that. I think we'd hit 30 million last year and then rolling into, finalizing that year, or maybe it was 2024, whichever year that was that we got the $25 million award.
Yeah.
We closed out last year at right about 43 million. 2025, it was 43 million.
So in 2021, you raised 1.4.
Yes.
Just recently, it's 2025.
2022, yeah,
Yeah.
2025 was about 43 ballpark.
Dude, see, this is the thing. People that are listening to this being like, I couldn't do it. That's for sure what you would have said in 2021.
Well, in 2021, when I learned that people were raising capital and they're like, "Do you want to raise money for this $1.4 million deal?" I was like, "Yes, I'm in." Who in the heck is going to give me money? Where am I going to go get $1.4
Yeah.
million? And it was tough, and we actually fell short, $400,000. Somebody else had to step in and help me fill that. So I guess really technically, my partner and I only raised 1 million. And then we really kind of dialed in our messaging and, what does that look like? And, implemented some strategies, really got plugged into some great networks. And the next year, I think we were sitting at around right at like 3 million for 2022. So, I mean, it went up, but not significantly. That really big jump, I think, was in 2023. We raised $5.4 million and actually, we had $11 million in soft commits for that $5 million deal that happened within a 48-hour time period. It was nuts. And so we grew, and then we had disasters happen. And then I had to kind of reframe and step back and go, okay, how do I rebuild this? This is not working. What works? What do I need to do differently? And I think just really talking to people about what worked, what didn't work, what the challenges were, I think that's really resonated with people. I think we need to hear more about that. And I think the way that we have, the underwriting criteria and everything else that we've put in place is a big deal, and it's good.
Totally. And now you're hyper specialized in oil and gas, which is your background. And when you get it right, this is the thing. I talk to people about this that don't fully appreciate it. The messaging and the consistency and like the specificity and simplicity of your message, it is a very, very powerful thing because messages don't take infrastructure to share. If you have a good webinar, it doesn't take you more work if 1,000 people share it. But if it's really good, 1,000 people might share it. And that's how you can imagine a situation where you basically have, you've hired a couple of people along the way, but you went from like raising $1 million to like 30 million without making this massive business, mostly because the messaging, the branding, the opportunity itself is all very consistent and authentic. And that can change everything. As you look,
Well, and hold on, I'm gonna pause you real quick right there
sure.
because I will say when I got into this, I had shiny object syndrome and I wanted all these different things and I wanted to bring all that to the table. And I finally had to stop and say, you know what? This is what I'm good at. I'm gonna niche down into this and this is what I do. And when people think about me, I want them to think oil and gas. Like I don't bring anything else to the table. It is oil and gas. And I think that is where things really started to change is when I dialed that in.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And like I said, when you get it right, everything can change. Just one question about this, and I want to talk about your next opportunity. Everyone wants to attract fund managers, and then it never goes like if people that are not as experienced, they're like, oh, this is a great opportunity. Get someone to invest $1 million in your deal. And you can totally do it, but it does take a little bit of effort. The pitch is that the effort is just well worth it. What would be one tip for someone for attracting and building relationships with fund managers, people that would invest 100, 500,000, 1 million, 3 million into your deal? How do you find those people? How do you build relationships with them?
Oh my gosh, this is like the $1 million question
For
right
sure.
here. It really is. And that is something that I'm actually trying to figure that out right now. A lot of the people that have come to me, I feel like I've done everything very opposite of what people normally do. Because I think people normally put a fund together and then they go out and try to attract capital and attract fund managers. And I had the very opposite thing happen. People knew I was in oil and gas and they were reaching out saying, hey, I really want to raise capital with you. How can I bring this to my investors? So I had like 70 fund managers and capital raisers that had reached out to me. What I'm trying to figure out now is how do I sift through that and pull out, the people that are aligned, correctly, and where do I find those new people? So now I'm just sitting here going, okay, your group has been really powerful for that. A lot of the people that I'm working with have come from your group that I've met from being in meeting at RaiseMasters and building those relationships and coming together in person. So a lot of that has just been from getting in the room and building those relationships with people. And now I'm trying to figure out, okay, where are these people hanging out outside of this? Where else are they going?
Yeah,
And how can I go get involved and build those relationships?
totally. One of the things that I have found that just being in a community element is so helpful is that even if you do go meet someone, unless you're constantly popping up in some way, it's really hard to stay top of mind, especially when someone else probably is. And so, we definitely have people that say, hey, listen, just introduce me to the fund managers. That's all I really want access to. I'm like, it's not going to help you. Like if I just
It's
say like, hey,
not.
like Because why would they trust you? Why would they go with you versus someone else who's constantly like in their world? And so I don't want to do people a disservice and be like, fine, give me 10 grand. I'll give you 3 meetings with these people that I know can raise tens of millions of dollars because I know they won't have success. And it's just, I could build a business around that. It's just a business where people are going to go, hey, it didn't work. And I don't want to do
Well, and
that.
I will say, I was in your community meeting with people and talking with people for probably more than a year before all of these things started happening. Like it wasn't like I joined your community and everybody was like, "Oh, Courtney's in here. She's in oil and gas. Let me give her some money." No,
Yeah.
I went to events and built relationships and tried to bring value to other people. When other people were like, "Okay, I'm trying to figure out how to capture leads." I'm like, "Hey, I'm happy to hop on a call. Here's what I did, here's what worked for me." I always tried to bring value to other people. And so I think that and then once you finally come together, it's like a reunion at these events. It's freaking awesome. I feel like I'm meeting up with like my high school graduates or my college buddies, and we have such a great time, and I love that. And so, but yeah, just joining isn't going to do it for you. It's joining and then providing value and getting involved and taking the time to build those relationships. It does not happen immediately. And it's funny, you just said that. I had a guy book a call with me last week. I didn't know him. He created one of the syndication portals, and he was like, "I've heard your name multiple times and I really want to work with you." And I just thought, well, I mean, first of all, what an honor, to have
Yes.
something like that happen. It really just it still to this day just blows my mind. I'm so grateful for that, but I don't know who's talking about me, but it's happening, and people are coming out of the woodworks over it. So whatever we're doing it right.
Totally. And it's like someone might hear this and go, oh, that sounds like a lot of work. It's like, but for what result? Like, if you're thinking that, what did you
You
raise last quarter? Okay, let me
but
just take a second because this is really important. If you're thinking that sounds like a lot of work, if the number you raised last quarter is 10% of 30 million, wouldn't it be worth it if it created 10 times the result? And it's not like the whole year was spent on this effort. She's doing other things. It's just that some relationships, the relationships that are actually worth building, those ones take a little bit of time. And then, by the way, here's the really cool part. Once you start to have that momentum, then you have people coming out where the time to value, the time to monetization is actually very short, meaning this person that just reached out to you, hey, I want to work with you. That's the first interaction, and they're like probably fully trained up on who you are, what you offer, other people that have had success with you, and the momentum just builds in itself. I know we got to wrap up in a second, but I want to kick it back to you.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to throw out there something else that I think is really important. People talk about, the cost of masterminds and things like that. I have been in your masterminds and I always pay to be in the top level. And people are like, "I can't believe you spend that much money." Well, I pay that because I'm paying to get in the room with other people that are doing big things. If you want to do big things, you've got to surround yourself with people that are doing big things. And yeah, have I spent six figures? Absolutely. But look at this. I raised over $40 million from that six figures that I spent because most of that is attributed to the people that I've met through your community. And so I would say that was really well spent money and time allocated.
You are a rock star. I appreciate the kind words. Obviously, I don't take credit for all that. You did a ton of work, but my goodness, is it so awesome? And the best part is, like I said at the beginning, given the market dynamics, if you deliver, that's just going to be the first time some of these people invested with you. And that number, if they just do it again and they have success, they'll grow their business as well. And then just oh my gosh, it's gonna be awesome. So listen, excuse me, Courtney, if you have anywhere people can learn more about you, your upcoming fund, how they can learn more about investing or maybe even being a fund manager, let them know.
Yeah, yeah. So they can go to ironhorseenergyfunds.com. We'll have our next offerings on there. If you are interested in becoming a fund manager and working with us, you can do it from that site as well. And then for anybody that's just interested in learning more about like the tax benefits and kind of the macro outlook and things like that, you can get our report at oilandgasreport.net.
Love it. We will link to that in the show notes page. Thanks a ton.
Thank you.